Welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV. Yeah, back here in the Rising Stones, where I wanted to continue our main quest. Serenia, gods, it's good to see you. I hope your being here means you're full of rest. Not so much as 40 weeks. Yeah, it was enough. Well, you certainly aren't it. Not much has happened since your last visit. I had planned for you to meet that helper I told you about, but he refused to answer his link pearl. I hope he's alright. We've been exchanging messages with the Eorzean Alliance throughout, though they say the fighting has finally stopped at the Gimlet Dark, and that the Empire has shown no sign of movement. Which means we might actually have a moment to ourselves for a change. Seeing as you're back, maybe you could tell me more about your time in the First? Great. Oh, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask F'laminn to join us. She'll want to know what happened to Minfilia, and I think it's best she hears it from you. We meet you on the terrace at the House of Splendors. Serenia, my, it's been too long. Tataru did mention that I would be joining you. Did she not? Thank you. Words cannot well express how I've longed to know more of the First. This world Minfilia has sacrificed so much to save. But come, rest your feet. Tataru should be arriving shortly. And so Minfilia chose to pass on her gifts to the next oracle. This girl who Fenquid named Reen. To have such a burden thrust upon her as a child, only to embrace it when given the choice. In that respect, they are quite alike. It would seem her legacy is indeed in capable hands. Serenia, might I ask a favor of you when next you return to the First? To tell Reen what I cannot? To tell her, thank you. And I would offer thanks to you as well for staying with her to the end. Beg your pardon, but could I have a word? Well, I hope you're here to tell me you've received word of our helper. I wish, nay. I've had not a peep out of him, and it's been a good long while now, too bloody long. On account of which, I'm going to sneak over the border and see if I can't get a signal to him from closer up. But what if I catch you? There must be another way. Well, it ain't as if he can ask Fenquid to do it. Besides, I shouldn't have no trouble picking me away through Gimlet now the fighting's died down. Gods know there's enough shadows to hide in. And it beats waiting around here twiddling me thumbs. Anyway, I just thought I'd let you know. Now, I'd best be... I nearly forgot. Krile's at the stones, she wanted a word. Something to do with her patients. She was getting ready to examine them again when I left. We'd best head back then. I'm sure it's important. It seems he's still examining them. Oh, I do hope it's nothing bad.
You're here. Good.
So, how are they?
Still locked in slumber, but otherwise in good physical health. For the present, at least.
For the present? Oh no, is something wrong with them?
I'm afraid there may be. I summoned you after detecting faint signs of instability in Thancred's corporeal ether. But subsequent examination suggested all 5 might be affected. And when I examined them just now, my fears were confirmed. Tellingly, the degree of instability varies between them. Thancred exhibits the most notable signs, followed by Y'shtola and Urianger. The twins' ether, meanwhile, remains relatively stable, but there is a change there too if one knows to look for it.
So, in order of in the order in which they fell over.
Hold on. Isn't that the order they were called away in?
Indeed. Which leads me to believe the instability will only increase with time. Though I can but speculate, I fear this may be a symptom of a weakening link between body and soul.
By the gods! What happens if the link is broken?
I cannot say for certain. This is all unknown territory to us. Yet whatever happens, it cannot be good. Mercifully, the instability is still only slight. And you may rest assured, Master Matoya and I will do everything in our power to keep it from worsening. Be that as it may, it is imperative that you find a way to restore our friends' souls to their bodies.
No rest for the righteous, huh?
I realize you've only just returned from saving 2 worlds, but time is not on our side.
But where's she even supposed to start? We had the greatest minds in the realm hunting high and low for an answer, and they ran out of places to look.
You stated in your report that the Exarch had originally intended to reverse the summoning process by means of his own death, correct? Raha always was a reckless young fool, ready to die for the first righteous cause that came along. His plan might well have worked, but I for one am glad he never had the opportunity to see it through. Even if it does mean our friends must remain stranded a while longer. There is another way, I am sure of it. And the key lies with him, with the Exarch. Pray return to the First and apprise him and the others of the situation. We, meanwhile, will do what we can from here. And, if the fates are kind, we will have good news to share upon your return.
Okay, then let's return to Northrend. Ah, Serenia, you returned. I hope your time in the source was suitably restful. But of course it wasn't. Go on. The corporeal aether shows signs of instability. By the gods. The possibility never even occurred to me. If you have returned in the hope that my research has yielded a solution, I fear you will be sorely disappointed. Despite the mercy, we have the likes of Mistress Krile and Master Matoya to keep our friends' bodies safe, while we wrestle with a problem. But they cannot forestall the separation of body and soul indefinitely. Come, we others must be told.
Pray excuse my late arrival.
Will Thancred and Reen not be joining us?
Nay, milady. With apologies to all, they beg leave to pursue their investigation of the empty to its conclusion. Should matters here demand their presence, however, they did assure me that they would make themselves available.
Yes, of course. Then let us proceed.
Great.
I think it best that you begin by providing a summary of Mistress Krile's findings.
I suppose it was only to be expected that some change would occur.
Yet our souls seem unaffected, to my eye at least. How long they will remain so is another question. Krile is right. It is imperative we find a way to return to the source.
Perhaps an explanation of the method by which I brought you here will yield some inspiration. Ere I begin, it must be noted that I am by no means a gifted mage. In order to employ powerful magics, I must rely upon the Crystal Tower and its boundless reservoirs of energy. The magic that summoned you was no exception. 'Tis a singular spell, adapted through painstaking effort from the technique that transported me to the First. To use an analogy, it works by cutting a hole in the fabric of reality. A hole tailored to the object of summoning, through which it and it alone may pass unscathed. Though I succeeded in creating said hole, I failed to latch onto my intended target. Instead of you, the spell found those close to you, and ended up summoning them in their incomplete state. I would not soon throw my life away, not after the lengths you and yours went to save it. And so long as I breathe, I will spare no effort to see you safely home. But should all else fail, and your lives be at stake, there remains one sure method.
Don't throw your life away, Graham.
Oh! What was that for?
How can you even entertain such thoughts? You owe your life to the Warrior of Light, and you don't get to die unless she says so.
Your followers await your divine judgment.
What did you just...
If the two of you have finished, perhaps we could return to our discussion? Rather than dwelling upon the multiple failed attempts at transference, I think it would behoove us to focus on the solitary success. I would draw your attention to the fact that our friend can travel between worlds possessed not only of her body and soul, but her personal effects besides. This is no different from the teleportation magics to which we are all accustomed. Magics that allow for the transportation of those inanimate objects one considers to be an extension of oneself.
Are you suggesting that simply by considering us her possessions, she could carry our souls back to the source upon her person?
Well, it would be nice if things were that simple for a change. But vague notions of ownership seem a rather tenuous thing to stake our lives on. So much as a moment of doubt on her part and we'd be left floating in the rift.
Milady hath the right of it. The requisite fixity of belief would be too much to ask even of our friend. Yet were we to immure our souls within an object in her possession, mayhap then our safe passage could be assured. White Auracite would, I believe, serve as a suitable vessel for this purpose. It was conceived to imprison the massy soul of an Ascian, and should house one of ours with relative ease. We would need only to ensure our soul's safe preservation inside the stone, and identify a means by which they might be transferred back onto our vacant bodies.
Soul preservation and transference. I believe I know of someone who may be able to assist us. On the far shore of the source, there stands a great palace built by the elves. It was forsaken in the wake of the flood, but a certain Numo chose to make their home there soon after. Though they have long lived as a recluse, they once occupied a place of honor in Verbert's royal court, and it is said that none in all of Norvrant is more knowledgeable than they on matters of the soul.
Well, I've no objection to seeking a helping hand, but if they've gone to such lengths to hide themselves away from the world, what makes you think they'd be willing to lend us one?
A worthy question. Years ago, I myself tried, and failed, to solicit their cooperation in the battle against the Sin Eaters. No sooner had I begun to make my plea, than they unleashed a swarm of their familiars upon me. Unlike me, however, you have curried favor with the Fae folk. By that merit alone, I am hopeful that they would grant you an audience. They may still be inclined to turn you away, of course, but if their knowledge might feasibly facilitate your return home, we have to try.
Okay. I'm sick and tired of the XIV's attempt at a selfless sacrifice. If he's just dying one more time, I swear I'm going to grant him his wish. The Numu seemed such a welcoming folk in Ilmek. What do you suppose could have driven this one to a life of seclusion? A mage of surpassing skill living a life of seclusion. Now where I've heard that before. One can only hope they are more receptive to unsolicited visitations. 'Tis said that the kingdom of Verbert was once home to the realm's greatest knights and magics both. To command a place at the royal court, the Numu whom we seek must needs to have been a mage among mages. The Grand Cosmos, that is, the palace we seek, stands on the opposite shore of the source. I will arrange for a boat to carry us there. Whilst thou journeyest thither, I think it best that I devote mine energies to the creation of White Auracite. By thy leave, of course. The process requires no small amount of time, and should the Numu consent to lend us their aid, we will have need of a suitable vessel ere long. Agreed. Then I would ask the rest of you to meet me in Sullen, and to be prepared for a warm reception. Pray join the others in Sullen. I shall turn my thoughts to the Auracite and apprise Thancred and Reen of our progress. Admit it, you are afraid of the water. After that stunt in the Tempest. Okay, and here? We were briefly in this village for the Fairy Beast tribe, otherwise I don't think we've been here. Oh wait. Might be we were here with Rianji? Or did we just fly over to Bismarck over there? The XIV said to prepare for a warm reception at the palace. Let's hope it's more cordial than his last visit. He said the palace is on the opposite shore, but I see nothing on the horizon save empty sky. Curious. I was relieved to hear the XIV intended to arrange for a boat to carry us across the lake. Not that I would be opposed to swimming, mind you. As I told you before, I had scarcely set foot on the palace grounds when I was set upon by our host's familiars, and I expect our reception to be no different. Which is why I propose we march through the main gate, weapons drawn. I'm sorry, but are we not here to petition for assistance? You can't honestly think barging in looking for a fight is going to persuade them. Actually, I believe the XIV may have a right of it. They have no doubt poured a great deal of time and energy into their creations. By them, I would be most interested to meet with those who would overcome my defenses. As would any true seeker of knowledge, and there is little we can say or do to convince them to help us if we know nothing of their character, no less why they chose to hide themselves from the world. But if we can seize their interest, maybe we can earn ourselves an audience. Punchy! Happens to on it is then. Well, I must say, XIV, you certainly seem to be enjoying all of this. Do I? Well, I will not deny that I enjoy the thought of fighting alongside you all rather than pacing about inside the Crystal Tower. You both seem to be in rather high spirits if you ask me. Not that I'm surprised, your moods invariably improve when Serenia's around. What exactly are you implying? She averted the calamity, and the light which seemed destined to consume her has been extinguished. It's only natural that we be pleased to see her. Yes, well, you will have plenty of time to celebrate her good health after we've finished here. Of course, let us proceed to the palace. The Grand Cosmos. Our next dungeon. Alright. But I think I end this episode and we do the dungeon next time. Yeah. Until then, I'm Ace and don't get lost.